When did the dinosaurs arise on Earth? What were some of the first dinosaurs? How and where did they live? Join us as we discover the history of the first of the mightiest beasts the Earth has ever known, the dinosaurs. Ankylosaurus. It is estimated that Ankylosaurus magniventris roamed the Earth in the early Maastrichtian stage of the late Cretaceous period, about 70 to 66 million years ago. Its first fossil was discovered in 1906 by the expedition led by American paleontologist Barnum Brown in the Hell Creek Formation near Gilbert Creek, Montana, USA. It was one of many projects he led for the American Museum of Natural History. Peter Kaizen, the fossil collector, uncovered Ankylosaurus remains which consisted of the upper part of a skull, 2 teeth, part of the shoulder girdle, cervical, dorsal and caudal vertebra, ribs, and more than 30 osteoderms. Missing parts of the skeleton were reconstructed in a pattern similar to Stegosaurus. Brown's first thoughts were that the animal had a similar look to the extinct armored mammal Glyptodon. For many decades, the depiction of Ankylosaurus showed robust forelimbs, a strong arched back, a pelvis with prongs projecting forwards from the ilium and pubis, as well as a short, drooping tail without a club, which was unknown at the time. Brown hypothetically reconstructed the armor plates in parallel rows running down the back. His reconstruction became highly influential, and restorations of the animal based on his diagram were published as late as the 1980s. Brown scientifically described the creature in 1908 and gave a monotypic name containing only A. magniventris. The generic name was derived from the Greek words ankylos, meaning bent or crooked, referring to the medical terms ankylosis, and describing the stiffness produced by the fusion of bones in the skull and body. The second part of the name comes from the word sauros, meaning lizard. So the full generic name is mainly translated as fused lizard, stiff lizard, or curved lizard. While the specific name, magniventris, has originated from the Latin magnus for great and venter for belly, as of great belly, in reference to Ankylosaurus's great shape. A variety of different parts of skeletons, but never a complete one, has been found over many years. Ankylosaurus fossils were found in the western United States and Alberta in Canada. It was one of the largest armored dinosaurs that had a tank-like wide and heavily armored body, including the skull and a large tail club. But it was also the largest and last of the ankylosaurs. The greatest Ankylosaurus specimen ever found measured 20.5 feet or 6.25 meters in length, 5.6 feet or 1.7 meters in height at the hips, and 4.9 feet or 1.5 meters in width. Its weight would likely reach up to 4 tons or 3.6 metric tons. Ankylosaurus walked on all 4 limbs. Its hind limbs were slightly longer than its forelimbs. The legs were in the shape of a slow-moving animal, with its thigh bones longer than the lower bone. There is not enough evidence of foot fossils to confirm whether Ankylosaurus had toes. However, taking into consideration other ankylosaurs, it's believed the dinosaur likely had 5 toes on each foot. Scientists discovered a part of the brain, since it was so well protected by the head armor. The most highly developed part of the brain is that which deals with the sense of smell. Ankylosaurus had a complex maze of nasal passages that suggests that this may have been the primary sense on which they relied. Most likely, The nasal passages were probably lined with membranes to moisten and warm the air as it passed down to the lungs. Ankylosaurids, especially from Asia, lived in very dry environments and would benefit from such complex nasal systems. It is suspected that the nasal passages were for generating sound for communication. Ankylosaurus was covered in large plates on the neck and shoulders, and small plates in rows along the sides, which were typical for the Ankylosauridae family. In addition, its head had prominent horns projecting back and to the side, and plates protecting its eyes, including the eyelids. It was quite a smooth dinosaur when compared with some other ankylosaurids with the number of horns or much longer spikes. The tail was stiffened by the vertebrae lashed together by fused bony tendons, and the club was formed at its end. The measurements of one big club, kept in the American Museum of Natural History, are about 60 centimeters or 23 inches long, 49 centimeters or 19.5 inches wide, and 19 centimeters or 7.5 inches tall. The tail club is about 2 times longer than a rugby or American football. It was suggested that it may have display purposes, like attracting mates. Quite likely, it may have been used for battle between two Ankylosaurus over territory, or in fighting off its predators. In 2 fossil specimens, the tail club showed damage possibly acquired after hitting something hard. Ankylosaurus could swing the tail to inflict massive force on the legs of an attacking predator, and would destroy their ankles with its 50-pound heavy tail club. Even without the heavy armor, Ankylosaurus would have been difficult for predators to kill. These predators included Tyrannosaurids, Tarbosaurus, and Deinonychus. Ankylosaurus was a herbivorous dinosaur that didn't have teeth at the front of the mouth, just a broad beak. However, the species had a simple curved row of irregularly edged small leaf-shaped shearing teeth. Ankylosaurus couldn't break up large plants due to its lack of grinding teeth. Researchers found signs of wear on the face of the crown rather than on the tip of the crown, as in nondosaurid Ankylosaurus teeth. The 2 small teeth that measured 3.2 to 3.3 millimeters in length, respectively, and originated from the Lance and Hell Creek formations, were assigned by Carpenter to a baby Ankylosaurus. The narrow beak helped in stripping leaves from plants. Its wide muzzle was designed for cropping low vegetation. In the Cretaceous period, there was a variety of plants, including flowering magnolias and angiosperms. Ankylosaurus may have enjoyed eating tough leaves and pulpy fruits and common ferns and shrubs. It is estimated that this dinosaur would have eaten large quantities of food, about 130 pounds or 60 kilograms of ferns every day. The average size of a modern elephant would consume similar amounts of dry vegetation. Ankylosaurus may have used its small teeth for eating fruit and invertebrates, such as snails, insects, earthworms, or some freshwater organisms. An adult individual did very little chewing of its food, as it had a large gut space. Unchewed and swallowed food would pass through the small intestine into the greatly enlarged colon that contained many folds and partitions. As a result, the passage of food was slowed, and there was an increased time for fermentation and to work on the ingesta by its microbes. It is believed that a young Ankylosaurus did not swallow their food whole, but used their tiny little teeth to perform some sort of chewing. Charonosaurus. One of a very important group of dinosaurs in the Cretaceous period were the Ornithischian family Hadrosauridae. Their name was derived from ancient Greek hadros, meaning stout or thick, and saura, meaning lizard or duck-billed. Hadrosaurids are known for the flat, expanded and toothless beak that resembles that of a duckbill. They are descendants from iguanodon-like ancestors with a similar body design. Hadrosaurids were dominant herbivores in Asia, North America, and several lineages dispersed into Europe, Africa, South America, and even Antarctica. In this family, there was also a subgroup of duck-billed dinosaurs with crests on top of their heads, called lambeosaurs. These animals could be distinguished by the shape, size, and color of the ornate hollow crest in different species or individuals. The crests were connected to their noses and throats and could be tilted backwards or forwards. Lambeosaurs' beaks were narrower than those of other hadrosaurid groups. The duck-billed dinosaurs were characterized by large eyes, acute hearing, and a good sense of smell. They had lost their thumbs, and their forelimbs were slimmer and less powerful than in iguanodon, whereas the hind limbs were stout and powerful. These dinosaurs often walked on all four limbs. However, they could walk or stand on two legs as well. Hadrosaur's skin was covered in small, round tubercles and was not covered in feathers like some dinosaurs of other groups. Charonosaurus was one of the representatives of lambeosaurs. It comes from the late Maastrichtian deposits, the Yuliangze Formation in the west of the Jiayin village, Heilongjiang province, China. By then, most other lambeosaurs had already died out. The holotype was a partial skull, and some other pieces of bone that were found in a bone bed, suggesting that this animal lived in big herds. This fossil was recovered from the southern bank of the Amur River, which divides the Russian North Bank and China. The river flooded frequently. It had relatively strong currents, causing animal carcasses to be concentrated and piled up at a low level in the landscape at the time. The bone beds comprised of about 90% of lambeosaurian fossils. The rest were made up by bones of Ankylosaurus, theropods, turtles, and crocodiles. Charonosaurus jiayenensis was the only representative of the lambeosaurians in this bone bed. As this dinosaur's remains were found close to a river, Gottfried Zahn and Jin from Shangjun University of Science and Technology named it Charonosaurus, which means Charon's lizard. The name refers to Greek mythology. Charon was the ferryman in the underworld and transported the souls of the deceased from the land of the living across the river Styx into the land of the dead. The ancient Greek practice of placing coins upon the eyes of the deceased was so that they could pay the ferryman. Although Charonosaurus's crest is uncertain, as only parts of the skull have been found. The researchers compared the rest of the skull with Parasaurolophus and think it was long and hollow. The crests were probably for display or to produce low-frequency sounds when threatened to warn other members of its group. Charonosaurus was one of the biggest of the lambeosaurines. Their length is estimated between 33 to 44 feet or 10 to 13 meters. The height is unknown, but almost certainly it was tallest at its hip. Charonosaurus probably lived up to around 70 to 80 years. The Charonosaurus was herbivorous, and its habitat primarily comprised riverbanks, grasslands, forests, beaches, woodlands, wetlands, and areas with plentiful vegetation. Their beaks were ideal for clipping leaves, twigs, pine needles, and roots of various plants. The back of the mouth contained thousands of teeth, suitable for grinding food before it was swallowed. Scientists inspected many ejected teeth from carnivorous dinosaurs. It is believed that while Charonosaurus was looking for food along a river, it was hunted, torn up, and consumed by their predators and scavengers, such as Tarbosaurus. Officially described species are Charonosaurus giayenensis to honor the area of its finding. Stygimoloch. When the first Stygimoloch horn core was found in 1896, it was regarded as part of a Triceratops skull. Other parts of the skeleton were found in fossil remains from North and South Dakota, USA. A few decades later, the scientists recognized a group of ornithopods in the suborder Sauropoda called Pachycephalosaurids. Only then, Stygimoloch was reclassified as a species of Pachycephalosaurus. Its skull looks extraordinary, with spikes 6 inches long and 2 inches in diameter. The array of horns is projected from the rim of the dome. The ornamentation, including long horns surrounded by clusters of more sharp spikes, started from the nose and going in 2 lines around each eye. There are also shorter and smaller spikes under the eyes. The head is quite long, and the dome is high, narrow and thin. Their look would have been effective as a threat or defensive display, similarly to some horned ceratopsians. There are quite a few animals that are named after the river Styx, appearing in Greek mythology. We have already discussed Charonosaurus and the history of the name. Stygimoloch means the horned devil from the river of death, and was given this name because of its fearsome look. Moloch was a horned devil in Hebrew mythology as a Canaanite deity. In ancient Greek stories, the dead had to cross the river Styx to reach the underworld. Also, the fossils were found in the Hell Creek Formation in Montana, inspiring Galton and Sues in 1983 to come up with such a name. It is very difficult for the paleontologists to properly identify species that are sexually dimorphic, meaning the sexes of the same species display a different look. This is a condition that occurs in most animals and some plants. This can also be exhibited in juvenile individuals of a particular species. These dinosaurs are not living animals and can't be directly observed during the course of their lives. It happened on occasions that fossils of juveniles have been described to be a separate species or genera, only to be found out later on to be immature individuals. It is not always possible to refer a juvenile or a specific genus or species, especially if the fossil is incomplete and no other skeletons are available for comparison. In 2009, a well-known paleontologist, Jack Horner, proposed a new theory regarding the Cretaceous period's 3 known Pachycephalosaurus, Stygimoloch, and Dracorex. His research shows that only adult specimens of Pachycephalosaurus had been found, and on the other hand, only juvenile specimens of Stygimoloch and Dracorex had been found. These dinosaurs all lived at approximately the same time and in the same place. He proposed that all 3 species were actually one species of dinosaur, whose skull underwent fairly dramatic changes during their growth process. Dracorex had a skull with quite a few similarities to Pachycephalosaurus, such as the bumps, horns and spikes, although they were shaped differently, whereas Dracorex did not have a bony dome on top. Stygimoloch was another Pachycephalosaur that had the same spikes, bumps and nodules, but also shared a bony dome on top of its skull. The major difference between Stygimoloch and Pachycephalosaurus is in the size of the bony dome. Horner suggested that the bony dome expanded as the animal reached adulthood, and that Dracorex and Stygimoloch represented juvenile forms of Pachycephalosaurus. Horner explained that the secret lies in the elasticity of bumps, horns, nodules and domes of Pachycephalosaur skulls. The bones were capable of major shifting in shape over a period of years. The debate is still ongoing. Until it is settled, Stygimoloch and Dracorex are suspected as juvenile forms of Pachycephalosaurus. These dinosaurs were very well equipped for striking other creatures. Some paleontologists are not sure that they would engage in head-on collisions like, for example, goats do today. They think that it would rather have used the skull to butt into the flanks of animals, whether as a defensive mechanism or in mating rituals, or both. It is believed that Stygimoloch lived in North America across Montana to Wyoming at the Maastrichtian stage of the late Cretaceous. It was a low-browsing herbivore, sometimes regarded as an omnivore. It would have eaten any of the angiosperms that were flourishing during the Cretaceous. Flowering plants already appeared in this period and were responsible for the abundance of lower plants such as grasses. While hunting for some low vegetation, it may have found plentiful eggs in nests or the small pouched and placental mammals. There were snails and insects that Stygimoloch may also have preyed on. Stygimoloch was a bipedal ornithischian dinosaur, reaching about 3 meters or 10 feet in size. It had relatively long legs for its size. The upper body was quite light. The scientific name of the species is Stygimoloch spirifer. These videos take a very long time to create. If you would like to support the channel and assist in improving it, then do please subscribe and give us a like, and consider joining our Patreon, links in the description.